She didn't slap him because she was brave. She slapped him because watching that vial shatter killed something inside her that fear couldn't touch anymore. 3 days, 72 hours of hell. That's how long Rowan Ashford had been walking through winter's teeth to reach this grove. The Forbidden Grove. The one that sat 9 miles deep into Alpha King territory where trespassers were executed on sight and their bodies left for the ravens. 9 miles. The number burned in her mind with every step she'd taken through knee-deep snow. 9 miles into land that belonged to wolves who answered to no human law. 9 miles past warning signs carved into trees with claws that could shred steel. 9 miles further from her sister with every hour that passed. Bryn had 48 hours left, maybe less. The fever had taken hold 6 months ago. What started as exhaustion became tremors. Tremors became seizures. Seizures became the kind of stillness that made Rowan check for breathing every 10 minutes through the night. Dr. Hewitt had tried everything his small-town practice could offer. Antibiotics, antivirals, blood transfusions that left Rowan dizzy for days after donating. Nothing worked. Blood fever, he'd called it finally. His voice had been gentle when he'd told Rowan there was nothing more he could do. Gentle in the way doctors got when they'd given up. When they were already writing the death certificate in their minds. 2 days. 115,000 heartbeats if Bryn's pulse kept that fragile rhythm it had fallen into. Rowan had counted them the night before she left, had pressed her fingers to her sister's throat and felt life flickering like a candle in a storm. The grove appeared exactly where the hooded merchant said it would be, a perfect circle where moonlight broke through the canopy even though dawn was still an hour away. The trees formed a natural cathedral, ancient pines that had been growing when her great-grandmother was young, their branches interlaced overhead like praying hands. And there, growing in a spiral pattern across moss-covered stones, was the sunfire moss. It glowed, actually glowed, soft golden light that pulsed in time with something Rowan couldn't name. Like it was alive, like it was breathing. The merchant had told her it only grew in places where the veil between worlds was thin, where magic still remembered how to exist. Magic. The word felt ridiculous in her mouth. She was a waitress at Maddie's Diner in Greystone Village. She scraped grease off griddles and smiled at truckers who tipped in quarters. Magic wasn't real. Magic didn't pay rent or keep the heat on or feed a dying 17-year-old girl who deserved so much more than the hand life had dealt her. But this moss glowed, and Dr. Hewitt had said if she could find it, it might work. Might. That word had cost Rowan everything she owned. $3,000 to a merchant who wouldn't show his face. $3,000 scraped together from selling her mother's jewelry, her father's tools, everything that wasn't nailed down or necessary for survival. 3 years of grief pressed into a crystal vial. Because that's how long it had been since the Millbrook massacre. Since rogue wolves had torn through their town in Idaho like a hurricane made of teeth and rage. Since Rowan had hidden 18-year-old Terror in a cellar, with 13-year-old Bryn pressed against her chest, both of them breathing through their mouths so the wolves wouldn't hear them sob. Since she'd found what was left of their parents afterward. Her hands shook as she knelt in the snow. The crystal vial the merchant had given her felt impossibly fragile. She'd wrapped it in 3 layers of cloth and carried it in her inside pocket where her body heat would keep it from freezing. Now she unwrapped it with fingers gone numb from cold and exhaustion. The moss came away from the stone easily. Too easily. Like it wanted to be gathered. Like it knew. Each piece she placed in the vial made the golden glow brighter, stronger. By the time she'd filled it, halfway light was leaking between her fingers in rays that painted the snow around her in amber and hope. Hope. God, she'd forgotten what that felt like. Real hope. Not the desperate kind that kept her working 3 jobs. Not the fragile kind that shattered every time Bryn coughed blood. This was solid. Tangible, this one. This was a cure in her hands. This was Bryn sitting up in bed again. Bryn laughing. Bryn graduating high school and going to college and living the life she deserved. This was everything. Rowan sealed the vial with hands that wouldn't stop trembling. Pressed it to her chest like a prayer. Thank you, she thought. To who or what she didn't know. The universe. God. The moon goddess the merchant had muttered about. Whatever force had led her here and let her find this impossible thing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. The growl came from nowhere and everywhere at once. It started as a vibration in the ground beneath her knees. Rose into a sound so deep it didn't seem like sound at all. More like the earth itself was angry, like gravity had learned how to threaten. Rowan's head snapped up. The wolf emerged from shadows that shouldn't have been able to hide something that size. 8 feet from nose to tail. 350 pounds of muscle and midnight fur. His coat was black as the space between stars, broken only by silver scars that crisscrossed his body like lightning frozen in flesh. Battle scars, the kind earned from winning fights that should have been fatal. His eyes were molten gold, ancient and alien, and fixed on Rowan with the kind of focus that made prey animals' hearts stop. She couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The vial pressed against her chest was suddenly meaningless compared to the reality of those eyes. This wasn't a wolf. This was something older. Something that remembered when humans were food and territory was claimed in blood. He circled her, slowly. Each massive paw left prints in the snow deep enough to swallow Rowan's whole hand. He moved with liquid grace, with patience, like he had all the time in the world, and Rowan was simply entertainment, a curiosity, a trespasser who'd wandered into the wrong story. She should run. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but her legs had forgotten how to work. Her body had locked into that primal stillness that meant the hindbrain had taken over. That meant survival had been reduced to maybe if I don't move, he won't see me, even though his eyes were tracking her pulse in her throat. The wolf's head tilted, almost curious, almost amused. Then he moved, one casual swipe of his enormous paw. Lazy, dismissive. The kind of gesture a cat makes when it's bored with a toy. The vial flew from Rowan's hands, time fractured into crystal-sharp fragments. She watched it tumble through the air, watched it spin, watched sunlight catch the golden liquid inside and make it blaze, watched it arc toward the nearest pine tree, watched, and couldn't do anything but watch. The vial exploded against bark with a sound like breaking bells. Golden liquid splattered across wood and moss, ran in luminescent rivers down to the snow. Soaked in, disappeared, gone, just gone, like it had never existed. Like 72 hours of hell, and $3,000 and 3 years of grief and time running out, and everything had just dissolved into frozen earth. Rowan's scream caught in her throat, died there, turned into a sound that wasn't quite human. She dropped to her knees, hands scrabbling in the mud, trying to scoop up liquid that was already gone. Trying to save something that couldn't be saved. Her fingers dug into snow and dirt and moss, came away empty. Again. No, the word had no sound. No, please. Bryn, the deadline racing closer, the fever, the way her sister's eyes had stopped focusing last week. The way her pulse had gotten so thin, Rowan had to press hard to find it. Please, she needs, please. The wolf huffed. The sound cut through Rowan's spiral, made her head snap up. He was watching her, still watching her. And the noise he'd made sounded like laughter. Like her breaking apart was amusing. Like the destruction of everything she'd sacrificed for was entertainment. Then he turned his back, started to walk away. Dismissive, done, moving on to whatever wolves did when they weren't shattering the last hopes of desperate humans. That dismissal broke something fundamental in Rowan's chest. Not fear, not even anger. Something rawer than both. Something that existed before language taught humans to name their emotions. It was the feeling of watching everything you loved die and being powerless to stop it. It was 3 years of keeping Bryn alive through force of will alone. It was 72 hours of agony for nothing. It was hours left racing towards zero. It was the moment when you've got nothing left to lose and fear stops mattering because you're already dead inside. Rowan's body moved before her mind could catch up. She lunged forward. Grief and rage and desperation alchemized into momentum. Her arms swung with every ounce of strength she had left. Every muscle fiber that hadn't been destroyed by 3 days of hiking. Every atom of fury at a universe that kept taking. Her palm connected with the side of the wolf's massive head. Smack! The sound echoed through the grove like a gunshot, cracked across the clearing, bounced off ancient trees, rang in Rowan's ears with a finality that made her realize exactly what she'd just done. The forest went silent. No birds, no wind, no sound but Rowan's ragged breathing and the thunder of her pulse trying to escape through her throat. The wolf's head turned, slowly. So slowly it felt like torture, like watching an execution in reverse. His golden eyes found hers, held them. The intelligence in that gaze was worse than animal fury would have been. This wasn't a beast operating on instinct. This was something that understood, that calculated, that chose its violence. His lips peeled back from teeth that could crush her skull like an eggshell. The growl that rumbled from his chest made the first one sound like a whisper. It vibrated through the ground, through Rowan's bones, through the spaces between her atoms. This was the sound that prey heard before the world ended. This was the last thing countless creatures had experienced before teeth found throats. Rowan's knees hit snow. Her body had finally caught up to what her hindbrain had known the second her hand made contact. You just struck the Alpha King. You just signed your death warrant. You just threw away the only chance Bryn had because you couldn't control yourself for 5 more seconds. The wolf moved forward, one massive paw, then another, closing the distance between them with the inevitability of sunrise. His eyes never left hers, golden and ancient and absolutely without mercy. Then he shifted. The change was violent, wrong. Bones cracked with sounds like breaking branches. Fur receded in waves that looked like they should hurt. The massive frame condensed, reshaped, reformed. It took maybe 10 seconds, maybe less. But Rowan watched every second of it with a horror that transcended fear. Where the wolf had stood, a man now towered over her, 6'8" if he was an inch, 270 pounds of muscle and scars and barely leashed violence. His hair was the same midnight black as his fur had been shot through with silver at the temples. The scars that had marked the wolf's pelt marked his human skin in identical patterns. Claw marks across his chest, bite wounds on his arms. What looked like silver burns that had healed wrong, leaving tissue that shone like metal in certain light. His eyes were still molten gold, still ancient, still fixed on Rowan with an intensity that made her want to dig a hole and disappear into it. He was naked, completely. The shift had destroyed whatever clothes he might have been wearing before, but he wore his nakedness like armor. Like modesty was a concept for lesser beings, like standing bare in front of a stranger was just another way to establish dominance. And God help her, it worked. Rowan couldn't look away, couldn't process anything except the sheer presence of him, the way he took up space, the way gravity seemed to bend around him. This wasn't just an alpha, this was the alpha. The one other wolves told stories about. The king, his hands shot out, caught Rowan's wrist before she could scramble backward. His grip was iron, inescapable. His skin burned against hers like fever. The moment his flesh touched hers, the world exploded. Not pain, not pleasure, something beyond both. A shock that had nothing to do with electricity and everything to do with recognition. Like every cell in Rowan's body suddenly remembered something it had forgotten. Like coming home after a lifetime of wandering lost. Like finding the other half of a puzzle you didn't know was incomplete. The sensation crashed through her nervous system in waves. She felt his rage at her trespass, his confusion at her audacity, his bone-deep exhaustion from 12 years of carrying a crown he'd never wanted. She felt scars that ran deeper than skin, felt loneliness that had calcified into armor, felt something that looked almost like hope struggling to survive in a chest that had stopped believing hope was possible. And she knew with absolute certainty that he was feeling the same things from her. Her grief, her desperation, her 3 years of sacrifice, her terror that Bryn would die, and it would be her fault. All of it laid bare in the space between one heartbeat and the next. His eyes widened. The gold in them flared brighter. His grip on her wrist loosened slightly, not releasing, but gentling, like he'd picked up something fragile and only just realized it might break. You. His voice was a deep rumble, still more animal than human, still carrying harmonics that made Rowan's hindbrain want to submit. You have a death wish, little bird. But his thumb was already moving, tracing the pulse point in her wrist with a gentleness that contradicted everything else about him. His expression shifted, fury bleeding into confusion. Confusion into something that looked almost like wonder. Why? He stopped, started again. Why do you smell like that? Rowan's mind was still trying to restart after whatever had just happened. My sister. Her voice came out, broken. Raw. My sister is dying. That was her cure. You destroyed it. His expression didn't change. That cure was poisoned. You're lying. His free hand moved, pulled something from behind a tree where Rowan hadn't noticed it before. A small leather pack. He opened it one-handed, withdrew a piece of cloth and a small glass vial filled with clear liquid, dropped 3 fragments of crystal into the vial. Fragments that glowed the same golden color the moss had. They watched together as the liquid in the vial turned black, as it began to smoke, as it ate through the glass like acid and spilled onto snow that hissed and turned gray where the liquid touched. Silver dust and nightshade root. His voice was flat, matter of fact, mixed so carefully into the moss that you'd never detect it until it was inside a human body. Then it attacks the blood, mimics the symptoms of the original illness, makes everything worse. Your sister would have died screaming within the hour. Rowan stared at the smoking snow, at the evidence of her own almost murder. I don't. She couldn't finish, couldn't process. Who would? Shadows moved at the edge of the grove. Rowan's head snapped up to see wolves emerging from between the trees. Dozens of them, some on 4 legs, some on 2, all of them massive, all of them scarred, all of them watching her with eyes that held too much intelligence to be comfortable. The man who'd been a wolf still hadn't let go of her wrist, still traced her pulse like he was trying to memorize its rhythm. Take her to Thornhaven. His voice carried command that made every wolf present snap to attention. No one touches her, no one speaks to her, and for God's sake, someone get me clothes. A woman emerged from the group, tall and whipcord lean with copper-red hair pulled back in a severe braid. Her eyes were amber, predatory. She looked at Rowan the way cats looked at mice, sizing up, calculating, deciding if the effort of killing was worth the entertainment value. Alpha. The woman's voice was respectful but questioning. She trespassed. She struck you. The pack will see mercy as weakness. The pack will see what I tell them to see. His eyes never left Rowan's face. She stays. She lives. And anyone who questions that can challenge me directly. Silence. The kind that meant everyone present was reconsidering their life choices. But Rowan's voice surprised her. It came out stronger than she felt. My sister. Please, I have to get back to her. She's alone. She's dying. I have to. Your sister has time. Maybe more now that you're not going to poison her. His thumb was still moving on her pulse. Still gentle. Still wrong coming from someone who looked like violence incarnate. We have time. Not much, but time. For what? To find out who sold you that vial. To track the poison back to its source. To stop the person who's been killing humans for 3 years while making it look like their own medicine was doing it. He finally released her wrist. The loss of contact felt like amputation. My brother has been distributing contaminated cures across 5 states. Your sister isn't his first victim. She won't be his last. Your brother. Rowan's mind tried to wrap around the implications. You're saying your own brother is behind this. I'm saying my brother has been trying to kill me for 12 years. That he's discovered humans with dormant wolf genetics make perfect test subjects. That he's been hunting your bloodline specifically for 6 months. His eyes found hers again. And I'm saying that if we don't stop him in the next week, your sister dies. Along with 73 other humans currently being fed poison disguised as hope. The copper-haired woman moved closer, knelt beside Rowan despite the snow. Her voice was quieter when she spoke. Less hostile, almost gentle. Your sister is sick because of what she is, not just human. The dormant genetics in your bloodline are trying to activate. Her body is attempting a transformation it doesn't have the strength to complete. The fever is her DNA tearing itself apart. Rowan's throat closed. We're not wolves, we're human. Our parents were human. Your great-great-grandmother survived an alpha bite in 1891. The woman pulled out a worn leather journal, flipped it open to a page marked with ribbon. Moira Ashford, bitten by Alpha James Thornwood during a territorial dispute. Should have turned or died. Did neither. Lived to 93 fully human, but carrying dormant genetics in her bloodline. She looked up at Rowan. Genetics that have been sleeping for 5 generations, until your sister hit puberty and they tried to wake up. She's caught between human and wolf. Her body is killing itself, trying to bridge a gap it can't cross. So she's dying because of something that happened over 100 years ago. Rowan's voice was hollow. Because some wolf bit our ancestor, and now it's in our blood like a curse. Or like a gift. The Alpha King. Theron. That's what the woman had called him. Alpha Theron. He crouched down to Rowan's eye level. Still naked, still utterly unbothered by it. If we can stabilize her genetics, give her body what it needs to complete or abort the transformation, she could survive. Thrive even, and if you can't, then she dies. And my brother moves on to the next bloodline he's targeted, and the next, until he's collected enough genetic material to synthesize alpha power, to become something that's never existed before. His expression was grim. Something that could control both wolves and humans. Something unstoppable. Rowan looked at the smoking snow where her hope had dissolved. At the massive man crouched before her who should terrify her, but instead made her feel seen for the first time in years. At the copper-haired woman with evidence of impossible ancestry. At the wolves surrounding them in a circle that could be protection or prison, depending on her next choice. 1 week, Theron's voice was rough. Help me find my brother. Help me stop him from killing more people like your parents. And I swear on everything I am, I will personally deliver the real cure to your sister. The one that isn't poisoned. The one that might actually save her life. Why? Rowan's voice cracked. Why do you care? You're a wolf. Your kind killed my parents. Tore them apart in the middle of the night while Bryn and I listened to them scream. Theron went very still. When he spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. What were your parents' names? Tell me their names. Why does it matter? Because I need to know if I failed them too. The way he said it, the rawness in it, made Rowan's anger falter. David and Alara Ashford. The words hurt to say, still hurt after 3 years. They ran a bookshop in Millbrook, Idaho. They were good people. They didn't deserve what happened to them. Recognition flashed across Theron's face like lightning, followed by something that looked horribly like guilt. The Millbrook Massacre. 3 years ago. Autumn. You know about it. I executed the wolves responsible. His jaw clenched hard enough that muscle jumped. 5 of them. Rogues who'd broken from their pack, driven mad by a new kind of serum my brother was testing. I tracked them for 2 weeks. When I found them, they were still covered in. He stopped, started again. I tore them apart with my own hands. Good. The word came out vicious. I hope they suffered. They did. But it didn't matter. Theron's eyes held pain so raw it hurt to look at. Your parents were already dead. And 2 girls were hiding in a cellar listening to monsters destroy everything they loved. And I was too late, again. Always too fucking late. He stood abruptly, turned away. His shoulders were rigid with tension. I've carried Millbrook for 3 years. Carried every face I couldn't save. Every second I arrived too late. And now you're here, one of those girls, trying to save your sister with poison my brother arranged for you to find. Walking straight into a trap that's claimed 43 lives. He turned back. There were unshed tears in those gold eyes. So yes, I care. Because maybe if I save your sister, it'll balance the scales for not saving your parents. Maybe if I stop my brother before he kills 73 more people, I can sleep without seeing your mother's face. Maybe. He stopped, swallowed hard. Maybe I can deserve to call myself king instead of the failure who let rogues slaughter innocents in his territory. The clearing was silent except for wind through pine branches. Rowan's hands were still covered in mud from trying to save medicine that would have killed Bryn. Her body was still exhausted from 72 hours of hell. Her heart was still broken from watching hope shatter. But something in Theron's voice, in his guilt, in the way he carried failure like a physical weight, made her believe him. 1 week. Her voice was steady despite everything. I'll help you find your brother. I'll help you stop him. But I want something in return. Name it. When this is over. When Bryn is safe. When your brother is caught. Rowan met his eyes. I want the truth about that night. About Millbrook. About what really happened to my parents. Not the version that makes you feel better. The real version. Theron's expression was unreadable. Deal. He extended his hand, not to shake, but to help her stand. Rowan took it, felt that shock again, that recognition, that sense of puzzle pieces sliding into place. One of the wolves finally stepped forward with clothes, pants and a shirt that Theron pulled on without releasing Rowan's hand, like he was afraid if he let go, she'd disappear. The copper-haired woman. Marin, that was her name. She moved to Rowan's other side. Come on. Her voice was gentler now, almost kind. Let's get you warm. Fed, you look like you're about to collapse. Rowan was. Now that adrenaline was fading, exhaustion crashed over her in waves. 3 days of hiking, 3 hours of terror, 3 minutes of world-destroying revelations. It was too much. But she let them help her stand. Let Theron keep hold of her hand. Let Marin guide her toward whatever Thornhaven was. Behind them, the grove sat empty except for smoking snow and shattered crystal. Except for the ghost of golden light that had promised hope and delivered poison. Except for the place where everything had changed. Where Rowan Ashford had slapped the Alpha King and somehow lived to tell about it. The fortress appeared through the trees like something carved from the mountain itself, Thornhaven. Stone walls rose 200 feet straight up from the canyon floor. Watchtowers jutted from the rock face like broken teeth. Ancient pines grew directly through some of the outer structures, their roots visible through windows. It looked like it had been here forever. Like the mountains had built it themselves and just waited for wolves to claim it. The journey had taken 4 hours. 4 hours of Rowan stumbling through snow, While Theron stayed in human form beside her, his hand never quite leaving contact with her arm or shoulder or back, like he needed to maintain that connection. Like breaking it would somehow undo whatever had snapped into place between them in the grove. Marin had explained the basics during the walk. Theron Wolf, Alpha King of the Northern Territories, 12 packs under his command spanning Montana, Wyoming, and Idaho. 38 years old, had taken the throne at 26 when his father was poisoned at a peace summit, spent the last 12 years trying to reform pack law while fighting off challenges from traditionalists who thought mercy was weakness. His brother Cassius had been his most trusted advisor, until 3 years ago when Cassius started talking about humans like they were a disease, when he began advocating for culling weak bloodlines. Theron had exiled him rather than execute him. Mercy, he'd called it, the biggest mistake of his life. Because Cassius hadn't disappeared. He'd been building, gathering rogues, perfecting poisons, creating a network of distributors who sold contaminated medicine to desperate humans, turning hope into a weapon. 43 confirmed deaths in 6 months, 73 more currently dying. And behind it all, a conspiracy that reached back decades. Back to Rowan's great-great-grandmother. Back to bloodlines that carried dormant wolf genetics. The gates of Thornhaven opened without anyone touching them. Inside the courtyard was organized chaos. Wolves in human form sparred in designated rings. Others carried supplies. A group of children practiced shifting under supervision. Everyone stopped when Theron entered, just froze mid-motion and turned to face him. Then as one, they placed their right fist over their heart and bowed their heads. The gesture was instant, synchronized, absolute. This wasn't fear. This was respect. This was loyalty that ran deeper than obedience. They entered the main structure through doors 20 feet tall. The interior was all stone and firelight. Tapestries older than countries hung on walls carved with symbols Rowan didn't recognize. The temperature jumped 40 degrees the moment they crossed the threshold. Medical wing first. Theron's voice carried that command tone. Get her examined. Fed. Warm. A woman appeared from a side corridor. Ancient. Had to be 70 if she was a day. But she moved with fluid grace. Her eyes were pale blue. Sharp. Assessing. Lyra. Theron's voice gentled slightly. This is Rowan Ashford. She needs medical attention. Lyra's eyes narrowed. She moved closer to Rowan, leaned in and inhaled deeply. Her expression shifted from clinical to shocked. Alpha. Her voice was very careful. Are you aware this human carries dormant Thornwood genetics? I am. Are you aware those genetics are attempting activation? I am. Are you aware she's manifesting early mate bond symptoms? The silence that followed could have cut glass. I'm aware. Theron's voice was flat, which is why she needs medical attention. Treat her, Lyra. We'll discuss implications later. Lyra gestured for Rowan to follow her down a different corridor. Theron's hand finally released Rowan's. The loss of contact felt like a physical wound. She looked back at him, found him watching her with an expression that held too many emotions to name. I'll see you soon. It wasn't a question. It was a promise. The medical wing was cleaner than most hospitals, all white stone and steel instruments that gleamed in lamplight. Lyra began examining her with efficient touches, checking for frostbite, listening to her lungs, taking vitals. You're malnourished, Lyra's voice was matter-of-fact. Have been for months. Multiple vitamin deficiencies. Anemic. When did you last have a full meal? Rowan tried to remember. A week? Maybe more. Bryn ate first, always. You've been starving yourself. My sister needed it more. Lyra mixed something that smelled like pine and copper. Drank this. It'll help with the deficiencies. Rowan drank. It tasted like licking a battery while chewing on tree bark, but warmth spread through her chest almost immediately. Her vision sharpened. The exhaustion eased slightly. Now, Lyra sat across from her. Tell me about your sister's symptoms. Everything. So Rowan did. Described how Bryn had been fine until 6 months ago. How the exhaustion started first. Then tremors. Then fever. The way her sister's eyes had started changing color in certain light. Gold flecks that hadn't been there before. The seizures with the full moon. The enhanced senses. How she'd been dying by inches. Lyra listened without interrupting. When Rowan finished, the healer was quiet for a long moment. Then she stood, walked to a bookshelf and pulled down a leather-bound journal. Your great-great-grandmother, Moira Ashford. Lyra opened the journal to a page marked with red ribbon. I treated her in 1923. She came to me with concerns about her granddaughter. Said the girl could hear things she shouldn't, could smell emotions, had eyes that flashed gold when angry. She looked up at Rowan. The dormant genetics skip generations, sometimes two, sometimes three, but they always resurface, always try to complete what was started over a century ago. Can you fix it? Rowan's voice was smaller than she wanted. Can you save Bryn? Fix implies something is broken. Your sister isn't broken. She's caught between two states of being. Her body is tearing itself apart because it doesn't have the strength or knowledge to commit to either path. So what do? We give her a choice. We stabilize her genetics, give her body the tools it needs to complete the transformation if that's what she wants, or abort it permanently if she'd rather stay fully human. Either way, the fever stops. She lives. And if we don't, then her body makes the choice for her. Most likely her human side wins and the wolf genetics die. She survives but never quite feels whole. Or her wolf side wins and the transformation completes without guidance. She becomes feral. We'd have to put her down. The words hit like a physical blow. How long? Rowan's throat was tight. Based on what you've described, 2 days was accurate. Maybe 60 hours if she's strong. After that, the fever will spike beyond what human physiology can withstand. Rowan put her face in her hands. 3 years of keeping Bryn alive. And it all came down to this. There's something else you need to know. Lyra's voice was gentler now. About the mate bond manifesting between you and the Alpha King. I don't understand what that even means. Lunar mate bonds are rare. Lyra moved closer. They happen maybe once a century, when two souls are so perfectly compatible that the moon goddess herself marks them as pairs. I'm human. How can I be mated to an Alpha King, your dormant genetics, the Thornwood bloodline you carry? It's enough. Enough for the bond to recognize you as viable. What does it mean? Practically, you'll feel each other's emotions when you touch, share dreams, know when the other is in danger, crave proximity. The bond will try to deepen. And if one of you dies, she paused, the other follows within days, maybe hours. The bond won't allow you to exist separately. Terror washed through Rowan in a cold wave. So I'm tied to him, forever, whether I want to be or not. Yes, the bond is absolute. It can be rejected, severed. But the process is excruciating for both parties, and it leaves scars that never fully heal. Can it kill me, the bond? Can it kill me? Lyra's expression shifted. Your human body isn't designed to contain this kind of connection. The bond is awakening your dormant genetics, forcing them to activate whether you're ready or not, if your body rejects the transformation. She stopped. Yes, the bond could kill you within a year, maybe less. The room tilted. So my choices are, let the bond kill me, or sever it and let Theron suffer, or transform into something I don't understand, or embrace it. Let the transformation happen. Become what your genetics have been trying to make you for 5 generations. Live for centuries instead of decades. Be bound to someone who will protect you with everything he is. She leaned forward. I've watched Theron for 12 years. Watched him carry the weight of 12 packs and never complain. Watched him make decisions that save thousands. He's a good man, a good king. And he's been alone for so long, he's forgotten what it feels like to be seen as anything other than a weapon. The bond chose well. Whatever you think of wolves, whatever rage you carry, the moon goddess doesn't make mistakes, Rowan wanted to argue. But the memory of Theron's touch, the recognition in his eyes, that made the words die in her throat. I need to think. You have time. Not much, but some. For now, let's get you fed and warm. She led Rowan to a different room. A massive bed dominated the space, furs and quilts piled high, a fireplace already blazing. A table set with food that made Rowan's stomach cramp with sudden hunger. Eat, all of it, then sleep. She left. The door closed with a soft click. Rowan stood alone, looked at the food, at the bed, at the window, showing mountains stretching forever. Somewhere out there, 9 miles away, was the grove where everything had changed, where she'd slapped the Alpha King and somehow lived. And somewhere beyond that, Bryn was dying. Counting down her final hours, Rowan's legs gave out. She collapsed into the chair, reached for food with shaking hands. Venison, fresh bread, berries. She ate mechanically. Just fuel, just survival. When the plate was empty, she moved to the bed. The furs were softer than anything she'd ever touched. Exhaustion crashed over her in waves, but her eyes were already closing. And the last thought she had before sleep claimed her was of gold eyes and a touch that felt like coming home. She woke to darkness and the smell of cedar. The fire had burned down to embers, And sitting in the chair beside her bed was Theron. He'd changed into dark pants and a simple shirt. He sat forward with his elbows on his knees, hands clasped, staring at nothing. Rowan's hand moved before she could think, reached out from beneath the furs. Her fingers brushed his wrist. The connection snapped into place like a lock turning. Emotions flooded the space between them. His relief that she was awake, his guilt, his terror that he'd pushed too hard, and beneath it all, something that felt like wonder. And from her confusion, her grief about Bryn, her exhaustion, and beneath that, something that terrified her. Recognition, the sense that this impossible man made more sense than anything in her life ever had. "You're awake," his voice was rough. "How do you feel?" "Like I've been hit by a truck." "How long was I asleep?" "6 hours. You needed more, but we don't have time. There's been a development." The words made Rowan sit up. "Bryn, is she?" "Your sister is stable. For now." His hand moved to cover hers. The contact sent warmth racing up her arm. "I sent Marin to Greystone. She's watching over Bryn. Your sister is safe." The relief was physical. "Thank you. God, thank you. Don't thank me yet." Marin found something. Evidence that Cassius has moved up his timeline. He knows you're here, and he's accelerating the plan. "What plan?" "The final harvest." Theron stood, moved to the window. "He's been collecting blood from humans with dormant genetics for 2 years. 73 people currently infected. He needs their blood at the exact moment of genetic crisis, when their bodies are trying to transform. That's when the alpha markers are most concentrated." Rowan's stomach dropped. "Bryn is one of 12 humans reaching critical point in the next 2 days. He'll come for her, for all of them. And when he does, he'll have the components he needs to synthesize alpha power, to become something that's never existed. We have to stop him." Rowan threw off the furs. "We have to get to Bryn first." "We will, but first you need to understand what you're walking into. My brother isn't working alone. When he comes for your sister, he'll have an army. Then we'll need an army too. I have. Every loyal wolf I have is mobilizing. But it's not enough. We need strategy. We need to know where he'll strike and when." His eyes found hers. "We need you." "Me, I'm human. I'm exhausted. I have no combat training. You know your sister better than anyone. You know Greystone. You know the routes." Theron's hand lifted, cupped her face, "And you have something Cassius doesn't expect. You have dormant genetics that are starting to wake up. Enhanced senses, strength, speed. You just don't know how to use them yet. I don't know how to be what you're describing. You're a survivor. You kept your sister alive for 3 years against impossible odds. You walked 9 miles into Alpha King territory because you refused to give up. You slapped me when any sane person would have run. You're already a warrior. You just need to remember how to fight." The words settled over her like armor. "Teach me. We have hours left. Teach me to fight, to use whatever these genetics are giving me. Teach me to protect Bryn." Theron's expression shifted into something fierce. "We start now." The training grounds were carved directly into the mountain, an amphitheater of stone where generations of wolves had learned to fight. Torches lined the perimeter. The air smelled of snow and sweat and something wilder. 20 wolves watched from the edges, some in human form, some shifted, all sizing her up. A human in their sacred training space. A human who'd struck their king and somehow lived. Marin stood at the center of the ring, copper hair pulled back tight, wearing leather that had seen real combat. Theron wore fighting leathers that moved like second skin. His feet were bare. The man who'd held her gently was gone, replaced by the king who'd built an empire on violence. "The rules are simple," Marin's voice carried across the amphitheater. "You have 43 hours until Cassius makes his move. We're going to push you past breaking, and you're going to survive it because your sister doesn't have time for you to fail." She gestured to Theron. "The Alpha will be your primary trainer. I'll handle tactics. The Pack will provide live opponents." She smiled. "It wasn't kind. Try not to die. We have limited healers." Rowan stepped into the ring. Everything about this felt wrong. She was a waitress, a survivor through stubbornness. Not a fighter. Theron moved to stand before her, close enough that she could see gold flecks in his eyes, could smell cedar and winter, could feel the mate bond humming between them. "First lesson." His voice was different here, all alpha, all command. "Your body already knows how to fight. The dormant genetics aren't just about transformation. They've been preparing you your whole life. Enhanced reflexes, faster healing, strength you've been suppressing. I am human. You're something more. and you've been hiding it. How many times have you lifted things that should have been too heavy, moved faster than you thought possible? Healed from injuries that should have left scars, Rowan's mind raced back. The time she'd caught a falling shelf loaded with dishes, had held 200 pounds without thinking. The time she'd slipped on ice and caught herself with reflexes that seemed impossible. The cuts and bruises that disappeared overnight. I thought I was just lucky. You weren't lucky. You were suppressing your nature. Every instinct telling you to be weak, to be invisible. But that ends now. Your sister needs you strong, needs you fast, needs you dangerous. His fist came at her without warning. Rowan's body reacted before her mind caught up. She ducked, twisted. Her hand came up to block a follow-up strike she hadn't consciously seen coming. The impact sent shockwaves up her arm, but she'd stopped it, had moved at speeds that shouldn't have been possible. Theron's eyes lit with approval. There, that's what's been sleeping in you. The next 2 hours were brutal. Theron came at her again and again, teaching her to read body language, to anticipate movement, to use her smaller size as an advantage. He was faster, stronger, more experienced, but he pulled every strike, turned every throw into a lesson. Your center of gravity is lower. He helped her up for the 12th time. Use it. When someone larger comes at you, get under their guard. Make them off balance. This time when Theron lunged, Rowan dropped low, rolled under his strike, came up behind him. Her hand touched his back in what would have been a knife strike if she'd been armed. Better. His eyes were fever bright. Again, faster. They moved through combinations, strike patterns, defense sequences. Rowan's body began to remember things she'd never learned. The dormant genetics were waking up, feeding information directly into her nervous system, making her faster, sharper, more. After the 3rd hour, Marin called a break. Rowan collapsed against the stone wall. Sweat soaked through her clothes, her lungs burned, her muscles screamed. But underneath the exhaustion was something else, something that felt like power. Theron sat beside her, handed her water. Their fingers brushed and the mate bond flared. She felt his satisfaction, his pride in her progress, his barely leashed desire to pull her close. And beneath that, his terror, his bone-deep fear that this wouldn't be enough, that Cassius would come and Rowan would die, and it would be Millbrook all over again. Stop. Her voice was rough from exertion. Stop carrying everything alone. His eyes found hers. I've been Alpha for 12 years. Carrying things alone is all I know. Then learn something new. Rowan's hand covered his. Let me help you carry it, whatever happens with Cassius, whatever comes next. You don't have to face it alone anymore. Something in Theron's expression cracked, just for a moment, long enough for Rowan to see the man beneath the Alpha. The one who'd been lonely for so long, he'd forgotten what connection felt like. The one who'd made himself into a weapon because that's what his people needed. His hand turned, threaded fingers with hers. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be mated, how to care about someone more than duty. Then we figure it out together. Rowan leaned her head against his shoulder. One step at a time. They sat in silence, just breathing, just being. The mate bond pulsed between them, warming, deepening, becoming something that felt less like a curse and more like a choice. Movement at the entrance broke the moment. A young wolf ran into the amphitheater with panic carved into his features. Alpha, message from Greystone, it's happening, now. Theron was on his feet instantly. What's happening? The harvest. Cassius sent teams to 6 locations. They're taking the humans, the ones with active genetics. They hit Greystone first. Bryn, Rowan's world tilted. Marin fought, took down 4 of them. But there were too many. They took the girl. Marin's injured but alive. She sent me ahead to warn you. 43 hours. That's how long they were supposed to have. But Cassius had accelerated, and now Bryn was in his hands. Where? Theron's voice was arctic. The old steel mill, outside Blackwater. He's converted it into a lab. Rowan knew Blackwater, a ghost town 40 miles north of Greystone. The mill had been abandoned for 30 years, miles from anything, perfect for a madman to build his nightmare. How many does he have with him? 50 rogues, maybe more, all volunteers. He's promised them power, 50. They'd be outnumbered, out of position, walking into a trap. We go anyway. Rowan's voice was steady. We get Bryn back. We stop Cassius. We end this. Theron turned to look at her. His eyes held something that looked like fear. You're not ready. 3 hours of training isn't enough. If you come with us, you could die. If I don't come, Bryn definitely dies. And I didn't survive 3 years of hell to lose her now. I'm going, with or without your permission. A smile ghosted across Theron's face. Small, fierce. You don't need my permission. You're my mate, my equal. You go where you choose. He raised his voice to carry across the amphitheater. All warriors, we mobilize in 10 minutes. Full combat gear. This is it. This is where we stop Cassius. Where we stop the harvest. Where we save every human he's taken and end his conspiracy once and for all. The wolves erupted into motion, shifting, gathering weapons, moving with military precision. Meryn appeared at the entrance, limping, blood soaked through her shirt from a wound on her shoulder. Her face was twisted with rage and guilt. I'm sorry, I couldn't stop them. There were too many. I failed. You didn't fail. Rowan moved to her. You bought us time. You survived to warn us. Your sister fought. Meryn's voice cracked. When they came for her, when the fever had her half-conscious, she still fought, scratched one of them bad enough that he'll carry the scars forever. She's got your strength. Then we go get her. And we show Cassius what happens when he takes what's ours. The journey to Blackwater took 30 minutes at wolf speed. Rowan rode on Theron's back again, his massive frame eating distance with tireless strides. Around them, 20 wolves ran in formation. Silent, deadly. The old steel mill rose from the landscape like a rotted tooth, 5 stories of rusted metal and broken windows, smokestacks that hadn't produced smoke in decades. But lights glowed in the lower levels. Guards patrolled the perimeter. Cassius had turned it into a fortress, into a laboratory, into the birthplace of his abomination. Theron shifted back to human form, crouched beside Rowan behind a ridge that overlooked the mill. His eyes tracked movement, counted enemies. 20 guards outside, probably 30 more inside. Plus Cassius himself were outnumbered 2-1. Then we don't fight fair. Rowan's voice was cold. We fight smart. You taught me that. Get under their guard. Use surprise as a weapon. What are you thinking they're expecting a frontal assault? Rowan pointed to the east side of the mill. That loading dock, the one with the broken door. It's how workers used to sneak out for cigarettes. I'd bet anything it's not guarded. Not well, anyway. How do you know that Meryn had joined them? Because I've been poor my whole life. Rowan's smile was sharp. And poor people always know the secret ways in. The paths that avoid attention. Theron's expression shifted into something that looked like admiration. You want to split our forces, hit them from 2 directions, 3 directions. Rowan traced paths in the dirt. Main entrance draws their attention. East loading dock is our primary infiltration. But send 2 wolves to the west side. Have them make noise. Set fires. Create chaos. Make Cassius think he's surrounded. Make him desperate. Desperate men make mistakes. Meryn's voice carried approval. It will work. Rowan met Theron's eyes. Because I'm going in through that loading dock. I'm getting Bryn out. And if Cassius gets between me and my sister, he's going to learn exactly what happens when you threaten what's mine. Theron's hand cupped her face. The mate bond flared gold between them. You're extraordinary. You know that I'm desperate. Desperate people do extraordinary things. Then let's be desperate together. Theron kissed her. Hard. Fast. A promise and a prayer. When this is over, when your sister is safe, we're going to talk about this bond, about what it means, about building something that isn't just survival. I'd like that, Rowan's voice was soft. They moved into position. 10 wolves with Theron for the main assault. 2 wolves to create chaos on the west side. 8 wolves with Rowan and Meryn for the infiltration. The plan was simple. Simple plans were usually the best ones. The loading dock door was exactly as Rowan remembered. Broken, rusted, hanging by one hinge. Perfect. Meryn shifted, tested the door with her nose. 2 guards inside, 20 feet in, both human form, armed with silver knives. Rowan's hand found a piece of rebar, 3 feet long, rusted but solid. It wasn't much, but it was something. They slipped inside. The mill's interior was worse than the exterior. Shadows that moved wrong, sounds that echoed strange, rust and rot and the smell of chemicals that made Rowan's newly enhanced senses scream warnings. The first guard died without making a sound. Meryn's jaws closed around his throat. The second guard spun, saw Rowan, raised his knife. His mouth opened to shout. Rowan's body moved on instinct. 3 hours of training condensed into a single moment. She covered the distance faster than human speed. The rebar swung, connected with his temple. The guard dropped like a puppet with cut strings. Good. Meryn shifted back to human form. He'll live, but he'll have one hell of a headache. Now comes the hard part. Finding your sister in this maze. Rowan closed her eyes, reached for something she'd never tried before. The mate bond with Theron pulsed constantly. But there was another connection. Fainter, older, the bond of blood and shared grief in 3 years of keeping each other alive. Sister bond, Bryn, she thought it, pushed it out into the universe. Where are you? And somehow, impossibly, she felt an answer. Faint, weak, but there, a tug on her awareness. A pull toward the center of the mill, toward the lowest level, toward where the darkness was thickest. Down. Rowan opened her eyes. She's down, below ground level. They moved through the mill like ghosts, past more guards, past laboratories set up in former factory floors, past cages holding humans in various stages of genetic crisis. People with eyes that flickered between human and gold. People whose bodies were tearing themselves apart. Rowan wanted to free them all, but Bryn first, always Bryn first. The others would have to wait. The stairs down were hidden behind a false wall. Clever, but not clever enough. Rowan's enhanced senses picked up the airflow, the subtle difference in sound. She pressed the right panel and the wall swung open. Below was darkness. Complete. Absolute. But Rowan's vision adjusted. Another gift from dormant genetics waking up. She could see. Not perfectly, but enough. The basement was a laboratory. A real one. Medical equipment that belonged in hospitals. Centrifuges. Chemical analyzers. Refrigeration units filled with vials of glowing liquid. And in the center strapped to examination tables were 12 humans. 12 people in various stages of fever-induced crisis. Their bodies convulsing, their eyes rolling, their DNA rewriting itself in real time. And standing over them making notes on a tablet was Cassius Wolf. He looked like Theron, same height, same build, same sharp features. But where Theron's eyes held warmth beneath the Alpha Authority, Cassius's were ice. Clinical. He looked at the dying humans the way scientists looked at lab rats, with interest but zero empathy. Bryn was third from the left, pale, unconscious, wires attached to her temples, an IV in her arm feeding something that glowed faint gold. Her chest rose and fell too fast. Her fever had to be catastrophic. She was dying. Right there, right in front of Rowan. Rowan moved before thinking, stepped into the laboratory with the rebar raised. Cassius. Her voice was cold, calm. Step away from my sister. Cassius looked up, smiled. It was the kind of smile that made children cry. Welcome, he set down the tablet. I was wondering when you'd arrive. The mate bond is so predictable. Of course, Theron would send his new pet to save her sister. I'm not his pet, and you're not touching her again. But I already have. Cassius gestured to Bryn. She's been part of my research for 6 months. Every medicine your local doctor prescribed, every treatment that seemed to help briefly. All of it was mine. All of it designed to push her genetics to exactly this point, where her DNA is fractured enough to extract, where her alpha markers are concentrated enough to synthesize. He moved to a refrigeration unit, pulled out a vial filled with silver liquid. This is 12 bloodlines, 12 humans with dormant wolf genetics at the moment of maximum genetic instability. This is power concentrated to its purest form. This is evolution. Cassius. A new voice. Theron stepped into the laboratory from the stairs. Marin and the 8 wolves flanked him. His eyes were blazing gold, feral. The Alpha King in full fury. Step away from them. All of them. Now, brother. Cassius's smile widened. You came. I was hoping you would. I wanted you to watch, to witness the moment everything changes. The moment I become what you could never be. Strong enough to rule both species. You're insane. Theron's voice was soft, deadly, and you're under arrest for murder, for conspiracy, for crimes against both human and wolf. Surrender and face trial, or fight and die here. Oh, I'm not surrendering. Cassius lifted the vial, looked at it like it held the secrets of the universe. And I'm not dying, not today, not ever. He tilted his head back, brought the vial to his lips, and drank. The transformation was instant, violent, wrong. Cassius's body convulsed. His bones cracked with the sounds like gunshots. His skin rippled as things moved beneath it. His eyes blazed not gold, but silver white, the color of madness, the color of abomination. When he shifted, it wasn't into a wolf. It was into something that had never existed before. 9 feet tall, muscle and bone and fur, the color of winter storms. claws like knives, teeth like daggers, eyes that held intelligence and hunger, and absolute certainty that he was unstoppable. He'd done it. Cassius had created his monster, had become his monster, had turned himself into something that shouldn't exist. And now, standing in a basement laboratory while 12 humans died around him, that monster prepared to kill everyone in its path. The battle for Blackwater had begun. The abomination that had been Cassius roared. The sound shattered windows, made dust rain from ceiling beams, made every instinct in Rowan's body scream, run, hide, die. But Bryn was behind her, and Theron was already shifting. The Alpha King's transformation was faster than his brother's. Cleaner. His massive black wolf erupted into being with a snarl that matched Cassius's roar. 700 pounds of apex predator. Midnight fur rippling over muscle, eyes blazing gold with fury and purpose. They collided in the center of the laboratory. The impact sounded like a car crash. Tables overturned, equipment shattered. The 12 humans on their gurneys convulsed at the violence of sound and force. Rowan threw herself over Bryn's body, shielding her sister from flying debris, from claws that could shred steel, from teeth that could crush bone. Theron fought with brutal efficiency, going for hamstrings, for joints, for the vulnerable points between ribs. But Cassius was bigger. The synthesized alpha power had turned him into something beyond natural limits. He caught Theron mid-leap, threw him into a concrete wall hard enough to crack it. Theron hit the ground, didn't get up fast enough. Cassius's clawed hand came down, aimed at Theron's throat. Rowan moved. She didn't think, didn't calculate. Just launched herself across the laboratory with speed that had nothing to do with training and everything to do with the mate bond screaming, "Protect him." She hit Cassius's arm mid-swing. Her human weight shouldn't have been enough to deflect it, but her body had been changing since the grove, since the mate bond snapped into place, since dormant genetics started waking up. The claws changed trajectory. Instead of Theron's throat, they caught Rowan's shoulder. 4 silver-tipped talons dragged through flesh, cut to bone, left trails of fire in their wake. Rowan hit the ground, screaming, and the world exploded. Golden light detonated from where Cassius's claws had touched her blood. Not metaphorical light, actual radiance that painted the entire laboratory in amber and power. The mate bond between Rowan and Theron ignited like gasoline touching flame. This was the moment everything changed. Rowan felt her genetics surge. Not painfully, not like tearing, like awakening, like remembering, like becoming what she'd always been meant to be. Her bones didn't break. They strengthened. Her muscles didn't tear. They rebuilt. Her senses didn't overwhelm. They clarified. And her eyes flashed gold, then stayed gold. Permanently. Beautifully. Absolutely. Claws manifested from her fingertips. Not slowly. Instantly, like they'd been waiting just beneath her skin for permission to exist. Power flooded through the mate bond into Theron. His wounds healed with visible speed. Silver poisoning that should have killed him burned away like morning mist. He surged to his feet with a roar that made Cassius stumble backward. This was a lunar bond at full awakening. This was 2 souls synchronized. This was power multiplied instead of added. Rowan and Theron moved as one. She went low, he went high. She slashed at Cassius's left hamstring at the exact moment Theron's jaws closed on his right shoulder. Perfect coordination. Perfect timing. Like they'd been fighting together for centuries instead of seconds. Cassius screamed, tried to shake them off, backhanded Rowan with enough force to send her flying. She hit a wall. Bones should have shattered. Instead, she absorbed the impact, rolled, came up ready. Theron, through the beam, not words, pure intention. 3, 2, now. They struck together. Rowan drove her newly manifested claws into Cassius's left knee. Theron's massive jaws found his throat. The abomination tried to pull them off, tried to use his superior size and strength. But lunar bond pairs didn't fight as individuals. They fought as one organism with 2 bodies. Every move Rowan made created an opening for Theron. Every strike Theron landed positioned Cassius perfectly for Rowan's counter. It was beautiful. It was terrible. It was exactly what the moon goddess had designed when she created fated mates. Cassius realized he was losing. Rowan felt the exact moment he understood that his synthesized power couldn't compete with genuine lunar bond synchronization. Saw panic flash across his distorted features. He tried to run, to escape, to regroup and try again. Theron's jaws closed on his spine, held him, immobilized him. Rowan drove both sets of claws into pressure points that made Cassius's legs give out. He collapsed, whimpering. The monster reduced to something pitiful and broken. The laboratory fell silent except for heavy breathing. The 8 wolves who'd accompanied them stood frozen, staring. Every one of them had dropped to their knees. Instinct, pure alpha dominance radiating from the lunar bond pair was too powerful to resist. Even Marin had her head bowed. Her voice when she spoke was reverent. Hushed. Lunar bond, a true lunar bond pair. I never thought I'd see one in my lifetime. One of the older wolves shifted to human form, kept his head down. Alpha King, Luna Queen. He used her title without hesitation, without question. What are your orders? Rowan looked at the 12 humans strapped to tables, at Bryn's pale face, at the evidence of Cassius's nightmare scattered across the laboratory, at Theron still standing over his broken brother. Free them. Her voice carried command she'd never heard before. All of them. Get them medical attention. And someone call Lyra. Tell her to bring everything she needs to stabilize genetic transformations. She moved to Bryn's table, began unhooking wires with careful hands, even as claws retracted back into her fingertips. Her sister's eyes fluttered open, fever bright but aware. Rowan. Bryn's voice was barely a whisper. You came back. Always. Rowan pressed her forehead to Bryn's. Always and forever. You're safe now. I've got you. Your eyes. Bryn's hand lifted, touched Rowan's cheek. They're gold. What happened to you? I became what I needed to be to save you. Rowan's voice cracked. I'm still me. I'm still your sister. But I'm also... She stopped. More. Lyra arrived 20 minutes later with 4 other healers. They moved through the laboratory with efficient precision, stabilizing the 12 humans, providing medicines that would give their bodies the strength to choose, transform or remain human, but choose from a place of health instead of crisis. Bryn would live. All 12 of them would live. The harvest had failed. Cassius lay on the floor in human form. The synthesized power had burned out of his system, left him weak, mortal, broken in ways that went beyond physical. Theron stood over him, fully human now, clothed by one of the warriors. His expression was unreadable. What do we do with him? Marin asked quietly. We let her decide. Theron gestured to Rowan. He targeted her sister, her family, her bloodline. She gets to choose his fate. Rowan looked at the man who'd orchestrated 3 years of terror, who'd made Bryn sick on purpose, who'd killed 43 people in pursuit of power, who'd nearly destroyed everything she loved. Trial. Her voice was steady. Public trial before the Council of Alphas and Human Representatives. Let everyone see what he's done. Let his crimes be witnessed. Let justice be transparent. Mercy. Marin sounded surprised. Not mercy. Rowan met Cassius's eyes, saw fear there, saw him realize she'd chosen something worse than execution. The world needs to know what happened here. Every human with dormant genetics needs to know they're being hunted. Every pack needs to know the danger of unchecked ambition. His punishment isn't death. It's exposure. She turned to Theron. And testimony. I want to testify. I want to tell every alpha and every human representative exactly what he did to my family. What he did to 73 people. Let his legacy be warning instead of mystery. Theron's expression held pride, wonder, and something that looked like love. As you command, Luna Queen. The title fell across the laboratory like a benediction, like an oath, like truth the universe had been waiting to speak. The aftermath took 3 days. Bryn recovered slowly. Her body had chosen, not transformation, not full wolf, but integration. Her dormant genetics stabilized into enhancement instead of conflict. Faster healing, sharper senses, longer lifespan, but still fundamentally human, still herself. The 11 other humans made similar choices. Some embraced full transformation, others chose to remain human with genetics permanently dormant. All of them lived. All of them were given support and protection and community. Cassius was tried before a council of 20 alphas and 30 human representatives. Rowan testified for 4 hours, detailed every moment of the conspiracy, every life lost, every family destroyed. The verdict was unanimous. Exiled to the farthest territory, stripped of wolf abilities permanently through ancient magic, forced to live as a weak human in the world he'd tried to dominate. A fitting punishment. Theron had said quietly, he wanted power. Now he'll spend eternity powerless. But for Rowan, the most important moment came on the evening of the 3rd day. She stood on the balcony where Theron had first asked to kiss her, where everything had shifted from survival to something more. The mountains stretched forever under a sky painted with sunset colors. orange and pink and gold, that matched her eyes. Theron joined her, stood close enough that their shoulders touched. The mate bond pulsed between them, warm, comfortable, complete. Lyra says the transformation is stable. His voice was quiet. You've integrated fully, human and wolf in perfect balance. She's never seen anything like it. I don't feel like either. I feel like something new. You are something new. Theron's hand found hers. Threaded fingers. The first lunar bond pair in over a century. The first hybrid integration in recorded history. The first human to slap an alpha king and live to become his queen. She smiled despite herself. When you put it that way. When I put it what way? His eyes held mischief. Accurately, they stood in comfortable silence. Just breathing, just being. The mate bond had deepened over 3 days, no longer fighting them, no longer feeling like a chain. Instead, it felt like choice, like partnership, like love that had been built instead of forced. I have something to tell you. Rowan turned to face him fully. About the bond, about us. His expression grew serious. Go on. I'm not staying because the bond will kill me if I leave. Her voice was steady. I'm staying because I choose you. Because somewhere between that grove and this moment, I stopped being afraid of what you represented and started seeing who you actually are. She cupped his face. You're a good man, Theron Wolf. You carry too much guilt for things you couldn't control. You blame yourself for every failure while never claiming credit for your successes. You've been alone for 12 years because you thought that's what leadership required. Her thumb brushed his cheekbone. But you don't have to be alone anymore. I see you, not the Alpha King, not the title or the throne. You, the man who cried over my parents, who trained me even though he was terrified I'd die, who gave me a choice about the bond even when it would cost him everything. Tears gathered in Theron's gold eyes. I don't deserve you. Maybe not. Rowan's smile was gentle. But you're stuck with me anyway. For centuries, for lifetimes, for however long this bond lasts. And I'm going to spend every day reminding you that you deserve to be happy. That duty and love aren't mutually exclusive. That you can be king and also be mine. Theron pulled her close, buried his face in her hair. His shoulders shook with emotion too big for words. Through the bond, Rowan felt everything. His relief, his joy, his absolute wonder that she'd chosen him not out of obligation but genuine feeling. When he finally pulled back, his eyes were wet but clear. I love you. The words came out rough, unpracticed, like he'd never said them before and wasn't sure he was doing it right. I don't know the pretty speeches, don't know how to be romantic, but I love you. Every stubborn, fierce, impossible piece of you. I love you too. Rowan's voice was soft. And I don't need pretty speeches. I just need you. Honest and real and exactly as you are. They kissed under the sunset, gentle at first, then deeper, then with the kind of heat that made the mate bond flare gold between them, made their hearts synchronize, made the pack wolves throughout the fortress howl with joy at feeling their alpha's happiness through the pack bond. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Theron rested his forehead against hers. There's something I need to ask you. His voice held nervousness. Will you? He stopped, started again. The pack needs a Luna, a queen. I need you to stand beside me. Not because of the bond, but because you're extraordinary, and I can't imagine doing this without you. Is this a proposal? Rowan's eyes danced with mischief. It's a terrible proposal, Theron admitted. I should have flowers in a speech and... Yes, Rowan cut him off. The answer is yes, to being your Luna, your queen, your partner. Yes to all of it. The relief on his face was beautiful. When now, why wait? Rowan laughed at his shocked expression. I've spent 3 years waiting for Bryn to get better, waiting for enough money, waiting for life to start. I'm done waiting. If you want me as your Luna, then make me your Luna tonight. Tonight, Theron repeated. Then his expression shifted into determination. Tonight it is. The ceremony was held under the full moon, improvised but perfect. The entire pack gathered in the courtyard, wolves in human form creating a circle around Rowan and Theron. Lyra officiated as eldest pack member. Merrin stood as witness, and Bryn, still weak but healing, watched from a chair of honor, with tears streaming down her face. Theron placed a crown on Rowan's head, simple silver worked with a moonstone, light enough not to burden, beautiful enough to declare her position. Luna, Queen of the Northern Territories, his voice carried across the courtyard. Chosen by the moon goddess, proven in battle, accepted by the pack. The wolves howled, human voices joined them. The sound rose into the night sky like prayer. Rowan felt the pack bonds snap into place, hundreds of threads connecting her to every wolf in the 12 territories. She could feel them, their loyalty, their respect, their joy at having a Luna again after 12 years of vacancy. And through it all, the mate bond with Theron pulsed strongest. Their souls wrapped around each other so tightly that she couldn't tell where he ended, and she began. She turned to the assembled pack, spoke with a voice that carried command she'd earned instead of inherited. I stand before you as someone who was human 3 days ago, who slapped your king in grief and desperation, who had no right to this crown or this position. But I also stand before you as someone who will fight for every member of this pack with everything I am, who will protect the vulnerable, who will stand against injustice, who will make sure no one else loses their family to conspiracy and poison. She looked at Theron. I didn't choose this life, but I'm choosing it now. I'm choosing all of you, and I will spend every day earning the right to stand beside your king. The howls that answered were deafening, joyful, complete. Later, much later, after the celebration had wound down and the pack had dispersed to their homes, Rowan stood alone on the balcony again. Bryn had been tucked into a comfortable room to rest. The wounded had been tended. The excitement had faded into peaceful night sounds. She looked at her reflection in the window glass. Gold eyes stared back, eyes that marked her as other, as changed, as something new. A wolf padded onto the balcony, massive, black as midnight with silver scars. Theron in his natural form. He sat beside her, rested his huge head against her hip. Rowan's hand moved to scratch behind his ears. Just being together, just breathing the same air, just existing in the comfortable silence of two souls that fit. You know what's funny? She spoke out loud even though he couldn't answer in this form. 3 days ago, I would have run screaming from you, would have seen monster instead of mate, would have chosen loneliness over connection because I was so scared of losing anyone else. The wolf huffed. The sound was almost like laughter. But then you destroyed my hope, and I slapped you. And everything changed. She smiled. Best, worst day of my life. Movement caught her eye, the moon breaking through clouds, full and silver and beautiful. And as Rowan watched, she felt something stir inside her, something wild, something that wanted to run, to hunt, to howl. Her first transformation. It should have been terrifying, should have been painful, should have been impossible for someone who'd been fully human 3 days ago. Instead, it felt like coming home. Her bones reshaped without breaking, her senses expanded without overwhelming, her body changed without trauma. And when the shift completed, she stood on 4 legs instead of 2. She was smaller than Theron, sleeker, silver fur with gold markings that caught moonlight and glowed. Her wolf form reflected exactly what she was. Not fully wolf, not fully human. Something that bridged both worlds. Theron shifted beside her, human again, naked and unbothered, and staring at her with absolute wonder. You're beautiful. His voice was thick with emotion. Perfect. Exactly what you were meant to be. Rowan tried to shift back, found the knowledge already in her body. Bones reformed, fur receded, and then she was human again, standing naked in the moonlight with the man she'd chosen, the king she'd agreed to stand beside, the mate her soul had recognized even when her mind was still catching up. Teach me, she said. Teach me to be Wolf, to be Luna, to be worthy of this pack's loyalty. You're already worthy. Theron pulled her close. But I'll teach you anyway. Every day, every moment. We'll figure this out together. Together, Rowan repeated. That sounded perfect. They shifted again. 2 wolves under the full moon, one black with silver scars, one silver with gold markings. They ran through the mountains together, hunted, played, howled until the entire pack joined them in a symphony that echoed across 12 territories. And somewhere in that sound was the end of Rowan's old life and the beginning of something impossible. Something wonderful, something that started with a slap and ended with a crown. She didn't slap him because she was brave. She slapped him because watching hope shatter killed something inside her that fear couldn't touch. But that slap, that moment of desperate rage, that refusal to accept dismissal, that was the moment everything changed. From invisible waitress to Luna Queen, from human to hybrid, from broken to bound, from alone to absolutely cherished. The slap heard across the kingdom became the love story told for generations. The human who struck an alpha king and became his queen. The woman who chose transformation over safety. The Luna who proved that strength came in forms the old laws never anticipated. And as Rowan ran through her mountains beside her mate, her pack howling around her, Her sister safe and healing, and her future stretching into centuries instead of decades, she finally understood what the hooded merchant had meant. Magic was real. It just didn't look like she'd expected. It looked like gold eyes and silver fur, and a love that could only be forged through pain and choice, and refusing to stay broken. It looked like a bond that would last forever, like a slap that changed the world, like a Luna Queen who'd earned her crown one impossible moment at a time. And that, as the pack would tell the story for centuries to come, was how Rowan Ashford saved her sister, found her mate, and became the queen who rewrote every rule about what was possible. The end and the beginning, all at once.